Welcome everybody to the Regional Transport Committee for May 2025. A particular warm welcome to those who are joining us in the room today and to those on Zoom. Welcome Lisa from New Zealand Rail it is, isn't it? You haven't got your sound on, but you're nodding, so that's okay. And there's Worship Mayor Denia and Lynn, you're also from New Zealand Rail, I gather? Lynn?
Yes, so I'm the General Manager of Engineering, but yeah, Kiwi Rail.
Okay, thank you for being with us. Okay, I do have a standard statement to read in which I remind committee members and advisors that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting and archived for a period of 3 years. Our purpose is to provide greater access to council debate, decision making and encouraging openness and transparency. I also remind all present that local government decision making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. As we know, the Regional Transport Committee is somewhat unique, so in the event of us needing to take a vote, those voting will be myself, the Honourable Ken Shirley, Mayor Tunui, Mayor Moore, and His Worship Mayor Luca and His Worship Mayor Denia, and also Andrew, you carry a vote for NZTA. Okay, so I'm holding apologies from Deputy Mayor John Scrimmager from Western Bay District Council, Logan Marsh, New Zealand Police, Councillor Beres Julian from Kawerau District Council, Chairman Doug Leader, Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and Mayor Denia, we can withdraw your apology for lateness because you are now online. Are there any further apologies? Anybody? Wonderful, and you'll be voting on his behalf. Good to have you, Councillor Scola, or Deputy Mayor Scola.
Thank you.
Good to have you. There are no changes to the order of business. There is no public forum. There are no items not on the agenda to be tabled or late items. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Anybody? There being none. Before I go on to the minutes, just to remind all politicians at the table, Glenn and others, please join the debate and discussion. But as you know, if we have to take a vote, you have had explained who's actually voting. So would someone with a long memory go to page 8 and the Regional Transport Committee meeting minutes last held in the offices of Western Bay District Council? Would someone move those as a reasonably true and accurate record of that meeting? Okay, the Honourable Ken Shirley. His Worship Mayor Luca?
Yep.
Wonderful. It's been moved and seconded. Were there any matters arising, anybody? We covered a lot of interesting items in the course of that day. They're all there for your information. I won't go through them page by page. A lot of those items will come up in the course of today's meeting. So moving on, I'll put it all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving on, today we're going to have a number of very interesting presentations, and it's great that we have NZTA here in numbers. We've got Jessica coming shortly, I understand. Okay. Andrew, you have one of your colleagues with you who you may like to introduce to the gathering now. So behind you.
Turn that on. Kia ora everyone. Sandra King is here, who is one of our system network managers for Bay of Plenty and leads our maintenance and operations space. So she's here with a particular expertise at the moment on the Pikitahi Bridge.
Topical, as we know. Sort of front of mind at many councils around the Bay of Plenty at the moment. So moving on in terms of presentations, the first one is item 7.1. It's on page 14. of the hard copy, and it's a presentation on resilience concerns regarding the Mitata to Pikawai section of State Highway 2. Whilst it's presented by Councillor Gavin Dennis of Whakatane District Council, with follow-up comments from Andrew Corkle from NZTA. Councillor Dennis has stressed that he also is a resident of that Mitata area, and the presentation is also as a resident and a spokesperson for that particular community. So, floor is yours, Councillor
Thank you,
Dennis.
Chairman Thurston, and good afternoon, everyone. First slide there just introduces who I am in case no one knows who I am. My name's Gavin Dennis. I've been a resident of Mitata since 1986. I've been a Whakatane District Councillor since 2019, and of that ward of which Mitata sits in, which is the Rangataiki Plains. I'm also the chairman of the Eastern Bay of Plenty Road Safety Operational Group since 2019. I'm also the Chief Fire Officer of Mitata Fire Brigade and the initiator of the Mitata Medical First Response Unit. I've been in that place for 38 years. I'm also an ambulance officer for the last 15 years, and I've been driving the patient transfer ambulances lately, in particular that maternity ambulance that takes people lighting sirens to Tauranga. So here we are. So this is Mitata. At the very top of the area, you've got the subway. This is the way to Tauranga. Here you've got a little bridge called Moore's Bridge. Sits 2.6 metres above the water level, and it's only about 5 metres wide, probably 7 metres, but the banks narrow it down to about 5.6 metres. These are the hills up here. It has a rather large hinterland that then flows through here into Salt Bays and into the Mitata Lagoon in front of the town. This is the route to Whakatane. You come down here to Edgecombe. There's another area here which quite often sends silt down, especially in 2005. We had our debris flow, completely drenched this whole area there, but also down here. So on at midnight on the 5th of March 2025, we had 97 mil of rain fall within 2 hours in the hills behind Mitata. It was just in the hills. Above the hills, no rain. Wakaponga, out this way, no rain. Up the straits, no rain. It was just in the hills. And so combined approximate 10,000 cubic metres came down, 8,000 down this one, 2,000 down this one, which is quite a small stream. This is the Waitapuru down here. That's the Amatariki there. So it was a debris flood, not a debris flow, because it had a higher ratio of water to salt. And so it flowed a lot better than normally would in a debris flow. And move, please. Oh, yeah, there we go. So the Waitapuru at the very top of that, towards the Edgecombe. So it had a stream retention and bunding structure that worked perfectly, accommodating the 2,000 cubic metres that flowed down during that event. As it went underneath, railways, and please forgive me for those online, but railways don't seem to like cleaning their culverts or their streams out in their land area. So as it came through, it sort of built up and squashed around, and it actually went underneath, but it also went up and over, washing out the metal between the culvert and the railway lines, causing the train to stay there for a good day. But State Highway 2 from Mitata to Edgecombe remained open. And so if you notice here, no, too far. So if you notice here, this is the railway bridge. This hinterland in here took the 2,000 cubic metres beyond our structure, blew out the metal through here and down the side of the road where it was meant to go and down through farmland. As you notice, the road's pretty clean. So that one worked really well. Unfortunately, the Awatarariki down the other end had a larger flow of 8,000 cubic metres, but we ended up with salt tree trunks and tree root balls that flowed both underneath and eventually over the top of Moore's Bridge. The bridge was eventually overwhelmed with silt and debris flowing over the top of it, covering State Highway 2 and making the road impassable. So you see this area here, this comes back down here towards the subway. You'd notice on here the amount of debris coming over the armour guard on the side. Moore's Bridge is just that little bridge there. So if you look back towards the subway from that place, you'll see the slush and that's still there. During the flood or debris flood, that was waist deep. And so it flowed back down to that way, but also flowed back the other way. If Moore Bridge here came down and into Pioneer Place. And if you have a look in here, this is the area in Pioneer Place. So it went up into the houses, etc., which wasn't very nice for them. Go to here. So State Highway 2 is a really critical route for not only the Eastern Bay of Plenty, but even down Gisborne. It's an important route for emergency services connecting to Tauranga, especially as I mentioned that bit about the maternity ward. It's usually from the hospital to hospital is about an hour and 20 minutes. I made it one night at 2 o'clock in the morning in 55 minutes, which I was very grateful for, going a little bit fast. But they had one the other day where the lady was having a normal birth and unfortunately needed to be quickly sent to Tauranga for a Caesar. And unfortunately, the baby didn't make it. So that's really quite sad. So, today I'm highlighting the concerns for the resilience of this bridge. And I'm seeking support from the people around this table to actually support and expedite any future plans for upgrading and increasing the size of the area underneath the bridge. It's not actually a culvert, it's two structures either side plus concrete pillars, etc., etc. But if we can enlarge that so that the flow and the root balls go underneath it, then that bridge subway will stay open. If an upgrade isn't currently planned, then the request is that we give it serious consideration. As part of an upgrade to Moore's Bridge, if we could make a bigger gap underneath that bridge, you could also do the same as what we do here at the Waitapuru. So you notice on the Waitapuru, if the railway line's down on this side down here, this is where it comes out of the hills. And we notice the massive bund on that side. There's a similar one on this side. And the stream comes down and goes through a culvert underneath there and down through the town to maximum of 6.8. Anything over there flows over a bund underneath here. But if we get a massive inundation like we did in 2005, this hump here and this hump here, make sure it still flows through there, and you only get 50 metres you have to clean up before it goes down under the railway line. What I'm asking is it possible that we could do something similar like that either side of Moore Bridge to stop it going under the subway or stop it going down to Pioneer Place? For the other one is for the Awatariki stream up the subway. It'd be really good if we could keep the trees and the scrubs below the railway bridge, and this is railways, and also on the banks below and above Moore's Bridge, which is NZTA, if we could keep those clean. There's been some quite big trees down there, and although the locals have complained about it, they've never really been cleaned out. Unfortunately, what's happened now is that we've had this debris flow. There was 8,000 cubic metres went down that time. Since then, 2 weeks later on a Thursday, we had another debris flow go, or another amount of silt go through because the banks of the stream have been stripped for some reason. First time in about 15 years it's happened because they did grow back, but now it's raw. So also last week we lost more. So instead of just 8,000, we're up to 25,000 cubic metres through there. And we're talking, we've got a fund and council of about 70,000 a year to dig out the silt traps on this Waitapuru and the Awatariki. So far, I think we're up to about 280,000, and we expect we're going to get inundated again this weekend. So every time it rains, we're going to get hammered. Associated issues. So State Highway 2 coastline is referred to as the Matata Straits from Matata up through Pikawai. It's also frequently subjected to unplanned closures from a combination of slips, flooding, accidents, but trees falling down out of the hills. So we need to look at that. Also, that road is shocking. If you were patient in the back of one of my ambulances, your teeth would be rattling going along there. So although I go lights and sirens and I'm allowed to do 120 Ks, 85 as the Mexican do along there because of the sheer amount of potholes, and it's just really terrible. So as well as the expedite and upgraded Moores Bridge, a route security review for this area would be beneficial, as highlighted during the development of the current 2024-2027 highway investment proposal. As I was telling the chairman, I went down to Gisborne Council Transport Committee, as wearing my hat as the Eastern Bay Road Safety Operational Group, to ask them for money to help us run the 2 fatigue stops that we do. And we had a very successful one last year, but all the departments involved haven't got any money left. And so we went down there to ask them for some money and ask them to pressurise Rhythm and Vines to give us some money too, to run one in Maratā and Opotiki. But when we finished, it was really interesting that one of the ladies followed us out and told us that they are doing a route resilience program. And I think it's because their cyclone Gabriel concerns where they're cut off from everywhere else. But at the moment, they're talking to Hawke's Bay. NZTA lady was there, they're talking with her. So they want, once that's done, they want to come up here and talk up here through Potiki, through us. And that includes the Pikitahi Bridge and includes places like the subway. If that subway gets blocked, for the ambulance to get to Tauranga, you actually have to go round via the lakes. So that's an extra 3/4 of an hour. And really for a woman who have a sudden emergency in the middle of childbirth, that is game over, really. It's bad enough having to drive them at 55 Ks, doing 120 Ks an hour. So here I am, wearing my residence hat, wearing my councillor hat, the fire chief hat. At 12 a.m. that morning, we had a motorcyclist come down who, like, it's pretty dark around there. He just ploughed straight into that waist-deep mud. And the first thing we heard is one of the neighbours heard this yelling and screaming and swearing as he's pushing his bike down the road, limping, and went away. And that was quite bad. And so I'm wearing that hat too as a chief fire officer. It is a dangerous spot, not usually, but you get weather like this and it's started to rip the banks out and it's just going to keep coming down. So I'm asking your support, or to receive this report, that somehow the Moores Bridge gets improved at large. And thank you.
Councillor Dennis, before I hand it over to Honourable Ken Shirley, Councillor O'Brien, you're voting today for Her Worship the Mayor. Okay, and to both you and to Councillor Von Dadelson, feel free to participate in this meeting. Of course, you're entitled to, Councillor O'Brien, but Councillor Von Dadelson, please jump in and join us. Honourable Ken Shirley.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Gavin. That was a very clear presentation, and you've outlined the problem pretty succinctly there. My question is, though, that rainfall event in March, or several questions. Do we know what the return period of that localised rainfall event was?
197 mil of rain in 2 hours.
The return period, though, would be what the predictive years of return that event is likely to happen. We can find out, but it's a good...
It's a really interesting, the same one happened in 2005. We had two weeks of steady rain like this,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden we had a massive rain bomb just over that area. And I think it got up to 197 in 1 hour. And that's what ripped it out. But
the trouble with return periods, it's both intensity and duration, and there's almost an infinite number of combinations you can have in terms of how many years between events, and you can get 300-year floods in a year. But the main question was the peak flow of 2,000 cubic meters per second. Do we know? Does the council know what the design capacity of that culvert is? Because it's a question of whether it's a maintenance issue or whether it's a design capacity issue on the infrastructure. But because if it's a partial blockage of debris or other aspects, which is maintenance, but if it's actually exceeding the design capacity of the culvert, then that's an infrastructure issue.
So there was 8,000 come down there and 2,000 down the other one. So under Moores Bridge is 8,000. The problem is that because it's bushland up there and there's quite a big hinterland, Once you get the sides of the stream go raw, then you get your tree stumps, native tree stumps and that coming down. So as well as the debris lining the creeks, it's those massive root balls coming down, they do the damage. In regard to your previous question, 2005, we had our debris flow. We hadn't really had a flow like that until March. So that's 20 odd years as of last Tuesday. So that's not bad, but now it's ripped the banks out of vegetation.
Wonderful.
This winter, it's coming into winter, it's going to be interesting.
Worship Mayor Luca.
So that's 2 debris flows in 20 years, right? Yep. When was the one previous to the major 2005 one?
They average every 50 years, they've discovered. I remember going back prior to that, and we were having to carry a patient out of a house down in that area, and we noticed the deck was built on boulders, and we thought, oh, that's weird. Why would you go to all the trouble of bringing boulders in on a truck to put your deck on? But it's obviously been from previous years.
It's just responding to the Honourable King Shirley. Whatever your guesstimates are for return periods, in a climate change world, I think all of those guesses go out the door. And Maratara, I believe, has got an interesting microclimate forming there with those hills. There's some science being done around what to expect around areas that have got microclimates. I can't remember what the result was, but I can bet you bottom dollar that these kind of slips or debris flows are going to come with increasing frequency. I mean, yeah, I expect anything.
Any further questions or comments to Councillor Dennis? Before you go, look, to me, there are health and safety issues here, and me with a bit of a background in health as a layperson, you know, I know it's been much reported about the need for women in Whakatane to access caesarean sections with urgency, and you know, if there's a low cloud cover and helicopters can't get in and ambulances can't get out, I think it is a worry. But NZTA, and then back to the Honourable Ken Shirley.
Thank you. Gavin, nice to meet you. Andrew, been in the role for about 6 months now, but this is, you know, obviously a new area to me, but acknowledge the effort you've put in coming along today and presenting these issues as well. There is a number of things to be concerned about in there, and it's great just to raise them for us at our level as well. Of note would be NLTP. I'm not aware of any funding for replacement of Moores Bridge or any works there. Not to say that we couldn't look at, you know, putting something forward as an RTC and toward the 2027 NLTP. But I'm happy to dig into that a little deeper as a result of this discussion today and what we've received from you in terms of the maintenance aspects, and note the pothole and the pothole issues, given you know, we've had a target on those set by the government more recently, but there are some drainage works that will occur on the straits there over the next few months, because we do have some resurfacing to undertake in the next maintenance season closer to the end of the year. I don't know if Sandra, my colleague, has anything else to add to that, but she'll be very familiar with this area, and we're fortunate to have her here today. So Sandra, if you do, happy for you to come up and speak to our maintenance out in that area.
Sandra, move up by Councillor Crowther. Bring all your, yeah, hold on.
You'll be okay here because
Is she okay?
Jess isn't coming till 3.
Okay. Sandra, just sit next to Andrew. Yeah. Jessica's not here for another hour, apparently. She's just, oh, Jessica, you are here. God, didn't recognise the new hair colour. No, sorry. My God. Sandra, did you want to make some comments?
That's the only thing. I understand there's a historic MOU between us, Whakatane and KiwiRail, or something possibly hasn't been enacted, but maybe that's something we can consider moving forward into the next NLTP to look at all the elements in this area. That
You know, to me, it's a bit of a catch-22. In one way, wearing my councillor hat and wanting to keep the rates down, I'd prefer that you put a smaller culvert in and it'd block it more and it'd fill up your subway, so you'd have to clean it out. rather than go into the silt trap where we're spending hundreds of thousands cleaning the stupid thing out. But really, to me, as Chairman Thurston said, it's a health and safety issue. It's a route resilience issue for Whakatane, Gisborne, the East Coast to get this stuff through. I remember during the debris flow, that was cut off for weeks and weeks because it blew the railway bridge out, it blew the subway out.
Just to respond to that through the chair, and probably our final comment on this piece would be the fact you've raised it today, the fact we've had the discussion, the fact Sandra's here as well will mean she's able to take this back to her maintenance and ops team, which work into the contract on that road too, to see what, if there's any minor things that we are able to do within current budget. But there is a wider discussion to be had toward the next NLTP about the resilience of this particular piece of our network, as well as some of the other pieces on State Highway 2 that you've mentioned and touched on.
Thank you very much. This is just a first mention. I don't think anyone's brought it up before, but the fact that it dips down under the subway, which I've always found really weird, because to keep the straight level for the railway line, and it's got drainage holes at the bottom of the dip, they had to get sucker trucks in to suck out the drainage pits before they could actually clean the subway up. But like I say, this is a first mention and it's a bit of a wish, but thank you for receiving the report.
Honourable Ken Shirley, then I know you haven't, His Worship Mayor Luca.
Just to say that maybe we need to get some cost estimates for, roughly what the modifications that Gavin is after will cost. But I've got time to do that.
So
Yes,
council,
estimate.
sorry, so you've heard the response from NZTA, does that meet your, does that give you a level of comfort? Because as you know, understanding orders, I'm a bit restricted in terms of a resolution here, but I'm happy to do a staff action and ask staff to write a letter from this committee to NZTA. But if you feel that they're here in person and numbers and they've captured it all, I'm guided by you. It's your call.
I'm very happy with that approach. I'm just very grateful for the chance to bring it up as a first pop-up. So, hey, look at this.
I'd just suggest to Sandra as well that perhaps her or one of her team meets you on site to actually see things on the ground in the next few months.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No letter, you will liaise directly with NZTA and then with you likewise.
Okay. One more comment from Sandra.
Sorry, Sandra, go for it.
Okay, these assets are quite critical on this part of the network, so our teams regularly maintain and check them. So, but let's have that conversation and on site.
Thank you.
As a formality, I'll move that we receive that presentation from Councillor Dennis, seconded Honourable Ken Shirley. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving on, everyone, page 16, Oliver, Chairperson's report. And it also will drift into a response from the Honourable Chris Bishop. I think you have copies in front of you. His response with regards tolling here in the Western Bay of Plenty, which was an issue that was raised at our meeting in December, and the Minister's only just now replied to it. So I know that'll engender some discussion, but Oliver, over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. If we discuss the letter from the Minister that's been tabled first, in addition to this letter, NZTA will be talking to tolling later in the meeting. So more than happy to have a discussion about that now, but just to let you know that there will be a presentation later today. On behalf of you, Chair, we will take the report as read, but I will draw your attention to one matter, which is section 2.2 on page 17 of your agenda pack. So this is a resolution that was passed at the 14th of February meeting of the Tauranga and Western Bay Transport Committee, and the resolution requested that this committee write a letter to NZTA requesting that NZTA evaluate and or future-proof a shared cycleway for stage 2 of the Takatimu North Link. Obviously, that committee cannot make a resolution on behalf of this committee, but I wanted to raise that today for any further discussion and perhaps some comments from Andrew Corkill.
Over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, happy to make comment now through the chair.
We're talking tolling. No, cycleway.
TNL stage 2 cycleway.
Future-proofing. Okay, good.
So, I mean, a quick response to that one would be, as you're aware, current government policy statement doesn't allow us to add what is referred to as frills to our roads of national significance, and walking and cycling investment is severely reduced as a result of that government policy statement. So built into the design of TNL Stage 2, there is not a cycleway allowed for there, but the designation will not change as a result of that direction. So in future, there would be the ability and there would be the land available for a cycleway to be included.
Honourable Ken Shirley.
It does seem to be a somewhat curious request to me, Chairman, in that there is an established dedicated cycleway already from Omokoroa right through into the city. And coupled with that, with the completion of Takatimu North Stages 1 and eventually Stage 2, the existing State Highway 2 will become a secondary parallel road with much less traffic on it and lower speeds as a local road, which would also serve as a cycle track. So cycle tracks along motorways are horrendously expensive, and it would seem a bit replicative to me and unnecessary.
His Worship Mayor Denyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to comment on this one, since I was helping to draft that resolution at the other meeting. I think the key thing here is we'll recognise there's not a lot of money right now for cycleways, with the government's priorities. This was simply about making sure that if we're trying to retrofit it, it wasn't going to be horrendously expensive, that it was something that could be added in relatively inexpensively at a later date if and when the funding arose, because noting that we're not always going to have a national government and different priorities change in the future, and other governments have had cycling as a higher priority. The one comment I'd make on Councillor Shirley made was that the existing cycleway from Omokoroa to Tauranga is quite circuitous. It's not really a fast commuter route as such, and so having a straight fast route alongside TNL2 would be beneficial, and it would then also take you into a slightly different part of Tauranga as well. So I think there's merit there. I'm gladdened by what Andrew has said in terms of the land is available, and I think that's the key thing that we were seeking, and I'm comforted that he's said that is there. So I would suggest that we could resolve just to confirm that and just bookmark this is something we want to consider in the future, but probably not do a lot more with it at this point. Thank you.
You want to move a resolution to that effect when we come to it, Your Worship?
Yeah, that would be happy to do that.
Okay, just draft a few quick words there for us that meet your requirements. Any further comments or questions? We're taking the chairperson's report as read, and likewise the road safety papers there that are quite substantial and detailed from the various sections of the Bay of Plenty. So I'm happy to take those as read. So how are you going there, Your Worship? You got...
Okay. Bit on the spot here, but I'm happy that that the regional
This is part 2, chairperson report and recommendations.
Yeah.
Or we can come back to that if you like.
Yeah. Why don't you? I'll draft something now and then.
Okay. Subject to that, I'm happy to move my chairman's report, seconded by Andrew. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving over, everybody, we're now on the second draft proposal, Whakatane District Council, Pikatahi Bridge, a verbal update from Transport Agency Waka Kotahi. And Mayor Luca, you're presenting this. Did you want to stay there or go down the far end? Okay.
I just note through the chair, we do have some slides regarding the Pikatahi Bridge, but it is a slightly separate issue to the one which Mayor Luca is presenting through his report regarding the second crossing, so we can move to that.
Did you want to weave those in at the end, or
we can move to that afterwards if it fits? Okay.
Okay. Second bridge proposal for Whakatane and also Pikatahi Bridge. Verbal update. Your Worship, Mayor Luca.
We've been talking about an additional river crossing in Whakatane for quite some time now, actually decades. Well, there's the presentation, if you can. Got the, yep, okay. All right, so this is a case for an additional river crossing for Whakatane. That's the present Whakatane Bridge. Oh, okay, it's a 242-metre ferro cement structure. Construction started in 1961, the year I was born. So it's 64 years, easy for me to calculate, 64 years old. And as you can see, it carries quite a bit of heavy transport as well. The bridge piers weren't always that shape. They were repaired at some point. I requested our former CE to have a proposal written on this in the beginning of 2023 to send it to the minister. It never happened, so in the end, midway through last year, I decided to write it myself. Whoops. Bit of bridge history. The first bridge in Whakatane was built in 1907, but the community started agitating for it in about 1893. The community petitioned the government to have the bridge built. It was built in another part of town, not where the present one is. We'll get to that later. The bridge was funded by the government, local ratepayers, and interestingly enough, a Portakey County Council. So, Dave, I'm coming to you later. There was a ferro cement bridge. It was completed in 1911 and went across at Otamakauko, crossing the river into Bridge Street, which Bridge Street still exists. The construction of the Landing Road Bridge, as I said, was started in 1961. The population of Whakatane at the time was about 7,000. It has since roughly tripled, and car ownership per person has roughly doubled. So that's a huge increase in the amount of traffic going across that bridge. It provided a more direct link to the airport, Whakatane Board Mill, and connected with a new road to Maratā, closer to the coast. A bit of a delay on this thing. Okay. Getting the hang of it. Just so that you can get your bearings. Tauranga over to the west. Landing Road Bridge is indicated there, Whakatane. And Portakey to the east. Gisborne again to the east. Rotorua is sort of south of us, as well as Kawerau. So we're kind of in the middle there. And the Pikatahi Bridge, which we've just heard about, is located to the south of Whakatane, about 15 kilometres away. Okay, that's the way the river used to look. You can see that loop there. The river used to meander around there. The bridge was where it says Old Bridge location. Try to make this sort of self-explanatory. And the old road used to go along Cleary Avenue and connect with the bridge. That part of the river was cut out and a direct section was put in. And at some point, a decision was made to remove the old bridge, which you can see down there on the bottom right. It was an analysis was done, and it was decided that was simply the structural integrity wasn't really good enough, so the old bridge was removed, leaving us with one bridge across the Whakatane River. Okay, Sandra, there's your email. I had understood, and I'd spoken with David Spears probably about a year ago, I'd understood that the Pikatahi Bridge was actually on the ship process. It turns out that it wasn't, but I'll let you speak to that, Sandra. It is yours, after all.
Not quite my comment.
Well, carry on.
Just noting, we do have slides specific to
To this,
Picton
okay,
Bridge
then.
within our
The
presentation.
bottom line is that the bridge is determined to be too healthy. I wish I could say that about myself, but anyway. And so a replacement, according to Waka Kotahi, is not warranted. At the moment, they are resurfacing, or they periodically have to resurface the deck because it gets a lot of wear. It was originally a railway bridge. It's a single lane bridge. So, you know, traffic lights at both ends. There is a detour for Pikitahi Bridge via the Whakatane Bridge. It's about 20 minutes. As I said, 15 kilometres, as opposed to other areas in the country, which are much bigger detours to take an alternative route. So that, as I said, the deck needs to, as often has to be resurfaced. It's a timber plank. And it is scheduled, I believe, for the deck to be replaced at the cost of about 12% of the cost of a replacement bridge, which I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, it is a 370-metre span. So if bridge length has got anything to do with it, it's going to cost a significant amount of money. Why do we need a second bridge, a second river, an additional river crossing? Well, there's economic reasons for having one. Whakatane is location less than 100 kilometres from the port of Tauranga. New Zealand's largest export port by volume and provides a logistical advantage for exporting goods. We have efficient road and rail connections, and they facilitate the movement of the products that we produce in the district: timber, dairy, horticulture, and eventually the district to the east of us, Poriki, aquaculture. We have a little bit of a fishing industry going on. Kaingo Aroa Forest, of which the western end protrudes into our district, is one of the largest in New Zealand, and there is a significant amount of wood product being generated in our district and adjoining districts. Agri-business is a cornerstone of Whakatane's economy. Dairy alone produces $600 million worth of funds annually, which is a significant amount. I think Shane Jones is very fond of saying that the wealth of the country is in the provinces. This might justify what he says. So the regions are fertile soil, support diverse horticulture activities, kiwi fruits, citrus, avocado, berries. Companies like Eastpak and OPAC are pivotal in post-harvest processing, bolstering export capabilities. So as I said, forestry is vital. Got about 1/3 of Eastern Bay of Plenty's 744,000 hectares planted in exotic forests. And there, of course, there is a pulp and paper industry, both in Whakatane and Kawerau. Aquaculture is emerging to the east of us. Tourism is fastest growing industry in Whakatane, contributes over $100 million to the district's economy and employs around 10% of the workforce. In 2023, tourist spending reached 165 million, domestic visitors accounting for about 87.8% of the expenditure. Whakatane has the only hospital in Eastern Bay of Plenty, and it is probably the largest single employer in our sub-region, with 800 staff. Given the economic activities and growth projections, enhancing road infrastructure in Whakatane is considered to be crucial. Improved roads will support the efficient transport of goods to the port of Tauranga and facilitate tourism and attract further investment. And there's some numbers there for kiwi fruit and avocado production. Strategic infrastructure development will play a critical role in unlocking some of the region's economic potential. So, coming to the second argument for this bridge, the transport network resilience. Floodwater levels in the Whakatane River have been increasing over time. I'll show you some data on that later on. Our bridge has been compromised a number of times, and I believe that eventually we will lose the Landing Road Bridge. And if that happens, possibly also the Pikitahi Bridge, leaving us isolated. We don't need to guess what happens when that sort of thing occurs, and we expect the frequency of those sort of extreme weather events to increase, and both in frequency and severity over time with climate change. At least that's what's predicted. And on the East Coast, I believe we lost about 30 bridges. Whakatane is the hub of the district and a major service centre for the Eastern Bay of Plenty. As I keep saying, we've got a number of satellite communities. Sooner or later, they all come into town. I think the average New Zealand, on average, 30% of New Zealanders go to a supermarket once a day. And we have 3 major supermarkets in town. State Highway 30 and State Highway 2 meet at the State Highway 30 and Thornton Road intersection. We've had a tsunami event in the time that I've been there, and one previous to that. 2 bridges obviously allow twice as many people to get out. Most people are directed to go up the hill. But our demographic is quite old, so I think many of the older folk are not going to easily get themselves up the hill. And people tend to just go for it. So I think when there was the last tsunami warning, I just went for the bridge. Okay, residential development as well. We have long past the loss of service condition anticipated by the most recent Gabitis and Porter traffic study dated 2008. They were predicting 2016 for significant loss of services on major roundabouts. The traffic situation in town will undoubtedly worsen, given what I said before. The population has tripled and car ownership has doubled. Traffic now routinely banks up along Landing Road through Domain Road and even reaches Coleman Street. As part of this proposal, we would we are in the process of undertaking some estimates of economic productivity loss as a result of people that sit in traffic for 10, 30 minutes. But I guess in Tauranga, you're kind of used to that. But anyway, productivity loss is productivity loss, and Tauranga doesn't produce anything, does it? Oh, hang on, I shouldn't say that. You've got a port, which we need. So even if we move on a bridge now, it'll take years to find the money and actually have it built. Meanwhile, the situation worsens, and of course, we're all very fond in this country of promoting economic growth, and that usually follows population growth, which has been trending at about 2% per annum, which means that infrastructure needs to double every 35 years. I don't know, people don't seem to understand that. At one point, this country was growing at 1% per annum, which means that your doubling time is 70 years. That's okay, you know, nice steady growth in infrastructure, but if you're doubling every 35 or shorter years, you better get your act together and rolling out the infrastructure, and that really needs to be in place before people start coming. So our population is increasing about 2 to 3% per annum. At least there are, of course, districts where that's much more strident, that increase. So there's just an aerial view. So Whakatane sandwiched in there between an escarpment and a river, and there's the position of the Landing Road Bridge right next to the Whakatane board mills. And on the right, you just have a table that gives you an idea of the distribution of rating units in the various satellite communities. As I said, just about everybody comes to town once a day. That one's probably not necessary. This was the flood event that we had in 1983, which caused a bit of scouring of the bridge piers. You can see that the piers look a bit different to what they are now because they were repaired. Would have cost a fair bit, I would imagine. And you can see the wrinkle in the top of the bridge. That was one. We've had the other events was the Edgecombe earthquake of 1987. That caused a little bit of movement in the bridge pillars as well. Research report was issued in 1996, and they talk about, you know, lateral spreading damage that occurred during the Edgecombe earthquake. So we are both right through the volcanic plateau, a region of extreme, you know, seismic activity. So that's another threat to the bridge. Well, there's a seismic map, and you can see where all the faults concentrate. So that's the tsunami evacuation, because being a seismic country and having a major subduction zone to the east means that we're also potentially vulnerable to tsunamis. And in 1960, they evacuated the entire town up the hill, and I believe the councillor Puller is that little child in the foreground here. That was our latest mass evacuation. So as I said at the very beginning, we've been talking about Second Bridge now for quite some time. It has been on and off long-term plans for a while now. So this is not really new, an additional river crossing for Whakatane. And that's the title pages for the Gabitas and Porter traffic study of 2008. It's about 130 pages long. The study conducts, and probably Oliver knows more about this, I'm just guessing really. It's a numerical analysis of traffic flows. I guess it runs with some sort of algorithm to decide where people goes. You make measurements of flows in different roads and then try and estimate where people will go. So this exercise is undertaken in order to determine the likely location of a second river crossing. And it analysed, come up with a bunch of options. And so what I do, and people in town say, oh, everyone's got an idea of where a bridge should go. I keep telling them I'm not a roading engineer or a bridge engineer. They carry out numerical calculations of where things should happen. And this has been done already. So what I propose is put on as a starting proposal is the best option that came out of this study. They analysed various corridors. You can see that if you come up through State Highway 2 from Taniatua, you can continue along State Highway 2, end up in Maratā, as Gavin was saying, or you can come through town and you down Thornton Road, and I guess this thing's got a pointer somewhere, but anyway, never mind. Oh yeah, so there's Thornton Road, State Highway 2 in red corridor, and then you can come up through Valley Road, through town, and join up with that. Just by looking at it, you can see that the distances are roughly comparable anyway. And so they came up with a location for this second river crossing, which was around about where I show there. So that's a potential bridge at the southern end of town. The idea here is that it would split the flows. So, from the northern part of town, you would come this way. If you were located in the southern part of town, it's convenient to go that way, which gives you two accesses. One, Rewa2 Road, which is our road, goes up through Pāroa Road and intersects with State Highway 30 and then onto Thornton Road. Or you can hang a left and intersect with White Pine Bush Road, which is essentially State Highway 2 off to Awakeri. Now, we had put I had nothing to do with this really. The RAG group analysed proposals, evaluated them according to some sort of multi-criterion analysis that was done. And this project, which was part of our spatial plan, ended up being ranked number 12 on our bid list, if you want to call it, for the RLTP. All we were asking for actually was a business case, which I'm shocked and horrified to learn at the time that $500,000 would have been short for a business case. It can cost $1 million, but I can understand that you've got to do some detailed engineering work. So you need detailed engineering on the bridge, the road accesses, and all of that. So yes, it can be quite expensive, and that's what we were asking for. It's the proposal really is just designed to get it on the radar. Okay. Traffic flows. The bars in blue are the number of crossings on annual average crossings for the bridge, about 18,000. I haven't got 2024s there, but I think it's substantially higher as well. The blue bars are the Pikitahi Bridge. You can see that the difference is about an order of magnitude. There's a lot of traffic on the Whakatane Bridge. And if you look at heavy transport, there is twice as much heavy transport crossing the Whakatane Bridge as the Pikitahi Bridge. And as Sandra's letter indicate, the traffic flows for the Pikitahi didn't justify a new bridge, but you're talking big money. I should have mentioned that the crossing that was indicated in the Gabbets and Porter study, the river at that point, one of the reasons it was chosen, only one, is that the river's only 50 metres wide. That's not a big span. There would need to be some, roading work on either side, and there's the toe of the stop bank as well, but it's a fairly short span. You could throw a stone across the other side. So that seemed like an obvious place. And also we are considering the idea of the bridge resilience. So it's all very well to build a bridge, but we don't want pillars. At least I don't think we should have pillars. Pillars are a problem, as we saw on the East Coast. So with a 50-metre span, there's no need to have a pillar. There actually are bridges in the Waikato that are single span, like, the old style with the arch. I don't know, they've been building them for more than 100 years. I don't think there's any mystery about that, but the Waikato Bridge is only a single lane, and this would have to be a double lane. The Waikato Bridge that I did have on this presentation, and then somebody took it off, but I would have liked to have stayed there. Only cost about $3 or $4 million. But it's, I'm not sure what sort of traffic weight it could take. That there is a bit of data that I've been looking at for quite some time. That's our Valley Road monitoring station, just upstream of the water plant. They've been monitoring water levels in Whakatane River since the 1950s there. There's a lot of data. What I did was took a threshold cut off of 7.2 meters and looked at what was happening over time. And you can see the graph here, which has got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data points that exceeded the 7.2 meter threshold. And the trend doesn't look very encouraging. I don't know, you can fit an exponential to that or whatever, but let's just be conservative and call it a straight line. Either way, it's not looking good. As climate change bites, that we're going to exceed that probably 8.2 meter level, and then we will be in the spot of bother. So there is that to consider. This is the Edgecombe floods of 2016. So we're very flood-prone region. I first spoke to Kiritapu Allen about this on the 15th of February 23. My take-home message was it's not the cost of the bridge that's the problem. It's the access roads, but the access roads are all council roads, and I believe that the road reserve is quite generous. So yes, there's some mahi to do there, but it shouldn't be a showstopper. And then on May of 23, Simeon Brown came by. He was the Shadow Transport spokesperson. And we mentioned, what do you want, when they're out there on the hustings, what can I do for you? And our request was, what about a second bridge? And he asked, have you got a proposal? Well, bingo. I mean, if you don't have anything in your hand, then you don't really have anything. So that's why I thought it's time to write a proposal. Costings. Well, since we're not doing any detailed engineering at this point, we have to just make some guesses. This is the SH25A bridge, for which I requested a business case under OIA. Of course, there was none because it was built under emergency, I believe. Oliver, would that be correct? No requirement for a business case. So it's a 124-meter span with a significant amount of earthworks to be done. It came in under budget at $40 million, but I think that that's much more than we need, since we're only needing to span 50 meters. So I don't have a way of doing accurate estimates. That would be the thing for the actual business case. But I'm guessing that it would be substantially south of 40 million, that's for sure. Anyway, I'm just guessing. And I think that, this is a little sort of related. I think I had a discussion with Andrew, the CE of Rotorua, and he was shocked to find out that once upon a time in this country, we had almost 800 local authorities. And I had thought to myself, well, in this country, we used to be able to build infrastructure once. We built most of our roading network probably when we only had 1 million or 2 people. We can't seem to do it anymore. We have this infrastructure crisis along with all the other crises we've got. And I was interested to know, when is it that we stopped building infrastructure in this country? And so what do you do these days? You go to the AI system, in this case is DeepSeek. And I asked, when did we stop building infrastructure in this country? When did the infrastructure deficit occur? DeepSeek only works if you ask the right questions. And it turns out that late 80s, well, yeah, what a shock horror. What happened in the late 80s? Something else happened in the late 80s. We embarked on a new economic paradigm. And of course, we whittled down the number of local authorities to 86. So this is a good argument for me for saying the consolidation doesn't actually work. Anyway, of course, this is just correlation, and correlation doesn't mean causation. But if you look at you have to look into the mechanisms for why things are happening. And well, I've got my ideas. Anyway, our bridge was built when we had hardly any people living in Whakatane. And I hope that we can build another one. Thank you.
A lot of ground there, Your Worship.
Yeah.
In terms of process, we can only just receive your report today. But like I said to Councillor Dennis, I'm happy to receive a staff direction if you so wish. But let's have a discussion. I'm sure there's some questions or comments around the table. And just to clarify, Andrew, the issue of Pikitahi Bridge, you'll cover at the tail end of your presentation, but questions or comments to His Worship there. Andrew, go
note on that. The plan of attack would be to break this into two pieces. So the response on the second river crossing, that discussion, and then Pikitahi more broadly, because there's a lot of maintenance issues at the moment, we'll throw to Sandra afterwards.
Just a point of clarification, because it is a detailed report from His Worship, we can make a resolution if we so wish. So, Your Worship, if you want to put something up and to progress this concern of yours on
The
behalf of the
committee
people of
supports
Whakatane, give it some thought. We'll come back to you. So,
Yeah,
Andrew,
maybe
back to you.
if I provide a bit more context, then that will help the committee with its next step. So from our perspective, I guess I don't have to, I'll take it as read almost that we are in that constrained funding environment mentioned before. But I do note, Mayor Luca, the effort that you've put into the report as well, and commend you for that. At the moment in the NLTP, we do have, and I imagine it's been through the good work of this committee over time, a project called State Highway 2 Awakeri to Opotiki Resilience, which has a probable status in terms of funding, which is better obviously than a possible status. So that means it's expected to proceed in this current NLTP with just over $400,000 allocated toward that, which allows us to have the opportunity to further explore the need for a second bridge, as well as the resilience of the existing as part of some wider analysis and, linking into the Eastern Bay of Plenty spatial plan and that work that is going on there at the moment too, from a broader network perspective. So I'd suggest that the work that you have done can easily feed into that, and we'll continue to monitor the probable status of that funding. So that's all I'll say on that matter for now, and allow others to comment.
Any other general questions or comments around the table? Worship Mayor Moore.
As you can guess, I often talk about this on the way back home. Look, just in your details, everything that goes over your bridge often come from our district, and a lot of that goes through our district. It's come from Gisborne. So in those truck numbers and everything, that's all part of it. You just had the calculations for the dollar value from Whakatane. You got to chuck in a Portakey, which is quite substantial. And then you've got to put in the dollar value from Gisborne, which I don't believe has ever been looked at. But I can tell you probably half the trucks that travel through my town, and they don't contribute to the protection of our stock banks, are heading to our port here. So that's something that's never been looked at. And you suddenly take that all out, you got a problem. You got a problem for the port. You got a problem for this country. It's a long way around going the other way. So it's not just our two districts. It affects everyone. But it is generally all heading to Tauranga. it's a flow-on effect. So if it doesn't come to Tauranga, it's going somewhere else, and it probably Napier.
Without road networks or rail, your productive capacity doesn't go anywhere. Everything has to get to port. Country, so yeah, it's all connected.
Your worship, striking while the iron's hot. If you want to word a resolution, I'm happy to pick up on it. If you want to play around with some words there after we've had some further discussion here.
I
So-
just a question. I intend to send once this proposal is because we're going to further develop the economic case, which might include what you're saying. I'm sending it to the minister. We'll
But
probably.
we're happy to support
Hmm.
Whakatane District Council's efforts in pursuing this matter further
Yeah.
and asking the minister to give it urgent consideration. So
Well done, Lyle. That sounds really good to me.
could set that to music, everyone. Okay, so have you any other further comments? Oh, sorry, Greg, you wanted to say something from heavy transport, Greg?
Just briefly, Mayor Luca, actually you captured one of our trucks crossing your bridge.
Oh,
And it's a high productivity vehicle, so they obviously are applying those routes.
yeah. I mean, one of the issues. I mean, our transport numbers don't actually tell us much about. It says it's a hit. Maybe you can correct me on this, but it only breaks down into light versus heavies. We don't know. It would be nice to know where those, because you make assertions, Dave, but I'm not really sure where these trucks are going to or coming from. I guess most of them that cut through town are coming from your way, and they still come through the Landing Road Bridge anyway. I mean, the distances are about the same. But yeah, it would be nice to, if there was a way of actually saying what truck it was and so you have an idea of where you know, what they're carrying and all the rest of it, but that data is just not available.
Oliver?
Through you, Chair, just to pick up on that final point there. So the data on trucking is only getting better and better,
Yeah.
especially through sources like E-Road. There is currently no active freight study in the Bay of Plenty, but just to let you know that if a feasibility study were to be done, that data would be available and you'd be able to
Okay.
go into much greater levels of detail compared to what's been achieved through previous feasibility studies. The other thing just to make the committee aware of is the strategic importance of a potential second river crossing is recognised in this committee's current regional land transport plan. It is ranked as the number 12 priority for the region. And if you look at the 11 projects above, this is the most important project outside of Tauranga and the Western Bay. So the committee did recognise the critical nature of this when preparing the current plan.
Yep, thank you, Oliver.
Greg?
Oliver, wouldn't the way in motion on those particular roads give you the tonnage data crossing those corridors or laneways?
Through the chair, it would be incredibly helpful. The advantage with data sets like E-Road is you can see the true origin and destination of trucks, and then you can make assumptions to infer what type of load they're taking and sort of how they're contributing to the overall ecosystem of the haulage industry.
Comment? Oh, sorry, Greg, keep going.
The tonnage is applicable to NZTA monitor that way in motion.
Sandra's just mentioned that we're able to add to that data as well. So stay connected on that one.
So these hoses, they work on air pressure, don't they? So they don't actually measure tonnage. It's a very broad brush sort of thing. Is that the way they work? They do actually measure gross tonnage. I'll have to look harder at the spreadsheet.
Final comments, your worship?
Nothing.
Take home message for us?
You run a great meeting.
No, I
Lyle.
do
How about
not.
that?
Okay, this is where it all landed, folks. The Regional Transport Committee, with regards item 8.2, receives the report, draft second bridge proposal, Whakatane District Council and the Pikatahi Bridge. Well, we know that's going to come up as a verbal update, and the New Zealand Transport Agency, Waka Kotahi, and 2, supports Whakatane District Council efforts in pursuing this matter further and requesting the Minister to give urgent consideration to the matters raised. You happy with that? You move, or would like someone else to move? Moved His Worship Mayor Lucas, seconded His Worship David Moore. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. As you know, I'm renowned for going backwards in the agenda. So can you go back to page 16 with regards to the chairperson's report? 1, we received the chairperson's report, and 2, His Worship Mayor Denia has pulled together some beautiful words somewhere. So here are the words here. You can read those. I don't need to read them to you. That's part 2 of the resolution. The resolution, if everyone's happy with that. Denia, are you happy to move?
I'm happy to move. I did what perhaps ask, we'll take direction on whether we are right to NZTA generically like that, or the chair of the board, or.
Well, let's get it on the table first. So you're moving, I'll second it. It's now on the table and it's open for discussion. Andrew.
I mean, the designation allows for it within the width, so there's no further land required. So whether you need to do anything, I guess, is my question.
Denia, comments?
I think it'd be nice to get NZTA to acknowledge that in writing.
Honourable Ken Shirley.
My concern is that it's risks being virtue signalling. It's clearly not the policy of the current government. And for us to, as a region, with all the other priorities and projects we've got, we're asking big demands of government because we are such a growth area. So for us to be sort of sending virtue signalling messages, I think actually debases our credibility. That's my concern.
Okay, well, you're one of those. Further comments, anybody?
Is virtue signalling bad or good?
It can do.
Deputy Mayor Schooler, big pardon.
I do think that's something we should be thinking about. I think provided we are minuting that, as Andrew said, that it is the land, there is sufficient land, provided it's in the minutes of this meeting. Is that not sufficient? Because I do suspect we're not meant to be doing that. And if we have already got confirmation, as Andrew has said, and that's minuted, I also wonder if that's sufficient.
Point if I may, Chairman, is that we must bear in mind this is running a 4-lane highway running parallel to the existing State Highway 2, which is a sealed 2-lane highway. The traffic will be going on to the new 4-lane highway. You've got the capacity in the new structure for it, should some future government want to do it. And you've also got a parallel 2-lane sealed highway direct route right in place. So I think we're in grave risk of virtue signalling.
Are the speakers for or against?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Before you start, Your Worship, welcome. It was an oversight on my part not to welcome you when you walked in. And likewise, Minister, dear God, not yet, Tanya. Her Worship Mayor Tapsell's on Zoom down here somewhere. Mayor Drysdale.
Apologies for being late. I think and this letter from Chris Bishop is probably a good example. I think if we keep we sort of want to keep our powder dry to be asking them for the things that are really important. And I'm happy to take Andrew's word as gospel that the land is already there, and therefore we don't need to have unneeded correspondence, which we obviously don't want to be the squeaky wheel that when we do ask for something important that they say, well, you've asked for all this other stuff too, and what are your priorities? So this is probably taking into account the current GPS. This is not something that is going to be supported by the current government, and therefore there is also I guess to Ken's point, there is on State Highway 2 a cycleway that runs all the way from Tauranga City out to Omokoroa, which takes into State Highway 2 as well. So, yeah, I think it's probably just not, needing to be supported this at the moment.
Bishop, any further comments before I go over to Mayor Denyer? Mayor Denyer, try and save it.
Thank you. This is a pretty minimal ask. I just don't want to come to a situation, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's longer, where NZTA say, oh no, we can't possibly build this. It needs a whole new bridge or some massive expensive engineering, and it doesn't go anywhere. So like this, as I said, it's a pretty minimal ask. We're not asking for money to be spent at this point. It's just get some clarification that it could be done in the future without huge expense, and to have that in mind as they progress the construction.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll take, Her Worship Mayor Tūnui.
Thank you through the chair. Just it might be helpful, look, for the last 3 years or 30 months in this training, and we've been going through the process of creating our NTLP, our Regional Land Transport Plan. I have it, that's the nerd in me, that's what 12 years of being in local government teaches you. We've gone through the trouble of articulating objectives. Objective 4 is the transport system enables people and goods to move efficiently and reliably to, from, and throughout the region. 4.4 speaks to supporting public transport, walking and cycling. And this, given that this is the 24 to 34 plan, it's captured there. I support actually questioning the need to highlight it. That's why we went through the trouble of actually creating this plan for the last 30 months. Chair, it's already in there. And now may not be politically the right time to be highlighting that, but actually gaining some support for some of the priority areas that are already in front of this government. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this in 2 parts. First, I'll move the resolution that we received the report, the chairperson's report. I'll so move. Second is Worship Mayor Drysdale. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I'll take the second resolution on its own. Final comments, Mayor Denyer?
I think I've said everything you said.
Okay, right. As you know, here we go. So I'm voting. The Honourable Ken Shirley is voting. Mayor Tūnui is voting. Mayor Moore's voting. Mayor Tapsell on Zoom is voting. Mayor Drysdale is voting. Mayor Denyer is voting. Mayor Luca is voting. And Andrew, representing NZTA, is voting. Would you like to, you'll abstain? I thought you might. Okay, on that basis, all those in favour of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hands, I think. I'll support it. This is James Denyer's resolution, beg your pardon, his worship's resolution. I think it's well and truly lost. Yeah. You want to put it up again? I detect a show of hands again. Those in favour of the resolution that's been proposed by His Worship Mayor Denyer, I'll support it. 4. His Worship Mayor Tapsell. 4. Against. Do I have a casting vote?
No.
No. Right, so it's help us out here. 4-4. Do I
don't think you do.
Just talk amongst yourselves for 2 minutes.
It doesn't have a majority, so
You don't.
If I can comment, you need a majority to pass. There's no casting vote.
No.
So a tied vote, it fails.
Right, there's advice from the Honourable Ken Shirley. Okay, it's lost me at it. I'm sorry. Okay, moving on. And we come now to the presentation from Wakakotahi. And Jessica, did you want to, where's Jessica? Come down to the table, Jessica. Sit next to Glenn.
Can I suggest through the chair that we
And you'll
deal with
weave
the
into
tolling
Pikitahi
piece
and-
first,
Okay,
and then we
we're in
deal
your
with
hands. It's your presentation.
Pikitahi.
So
Cool,
you play,
okay, 'cause
you
then
play it
our
exactly how you
staff
want to
can
play.
leave, so, yeah.
Welcome, Jessica.
So that will mean Amanda pulling up the slides on tolling first. So yeah, kia ora everyone. It's been a lot of time that's passed since we've done this report, so there's quite a bit to update on, which I'll whiz through after the presentations from my two colleagues here. So we'll hit tolling first, and we've kindly had Jess Andrews come along, who will be familiar to many of you because she used to come to this committee quite often in her previous role. She's now our Senior Manager of Planning, Performance and Safety.
Andrew, just pause for a minute. Are you happy to take questions through the presentation or at the very end?
I think we'll be happy for that, Jess. Kind of over to you, and then from there we'll move on.
It's a big presentation, so it may be easier if people ask questions.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, just indicate to me, everyone, if you wish to interrupt.
Cool. Okay, so I'll leave you in Jess's hands to introduce the tolling piece.
Kia ora koutou everyone. It is wonderful to be back here today, and I'm also going to be joined online by my colleague Angela Mortlop, who's our Principal Advisor tolling. She's available to answer any more of the more detailed questions you might throw at me, so she should be along shortly. I understand obviously there's a lot of conversation about tolling in the Western Bay of Plenty in particular, and really keen and appreciate this opportunity to come and talk a bit more directly with you about it. I wanted to open to give you a little bit of context to tolling nationally, looking both at the current context, but I've also got a little bit of historic background, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. So coming to the current view, obviously the government policy statement on land transport, the current 2024 one, is very clear and direct in its expectation that all new roads be considered for tolling, and that tolling is primarily focused on supporting the construction and maintenance of those, noting that tolling revenue can only be used to pay for that road itself that is tolled. Under the current legislation, you can only toll a new or substantially modified road. Substantially modified is usually, there's always legal nuances, but it's usually what you'd see if you go from 2 to 4 lanes. So you're adding significantly more to the road. All new state highways are assessed for tolling, and that is a consistent kind of practice throughout the organisation and has been going for some time, but obviously it's much more visible at the moment with the roads of national significance. And it's a critical part of looking at how we can fund and deliver this, the large RONZ, Roads of National Significance program. There was quite a big movement end of last year, when we had 3 new roads confirmed for tolling. So those were Otaki north of Levin, down between Waikato and Horowhenua, Penlink on the Whangaparoa Peninsula north of Auckland, and Takatumu North Link here in the Western Bay. And we also have tolling assessments ongoing at the moment on a number of other roads of national significance. And we've got the list there so you can see those. And I think I heard some media coverage this morning around the Belfast to Pegasus one, which, bringing the South Island into the tolling fold. So there is a lot of work happening in this space, and Angela and her team are extraordinarily busy looking across these. I wanted to touch on, and one of the questions that was asked by the RTC is around transparency around revenue. So just as I've said already, tolling revenue has to be used to pay for the cost of construction, operation and maintenance of the road that is tolled. And that is consistent in the legislation. We are actually very transparent, and we're legislatively required to be very transparent about where that money goes. And all of that information is available on our website, and I've put the link there in the slides. It sets out for you the toll revenue received, and that's by road. The costs of the road and the proportion that will be paid by the tolling. It tells you where the debt remaining left on each one is, and the estimated dates for when the toll will be lifted based on that, and the current forecasts. And that's updated annually. So that information is readily available, and we can always provide more if needed. But that has the current state of each of the toll roads, including in the Western Bay. Looking back to Tauranga, again, a number of you are very familiar with this, but I really wanted to remind us that the history of tolling in Tauranga is one of innovation and growth. Tauranga has been a fantastic and proactive user of tolling in order to bring forward infrastructure to drive growth and economic productivity. So Tauranga has driven the Tauranga Eastern Link, which was brought forward by 10 years and had 80-something% public support to be tolled in order to enable that to be built early. And similarly, Tauranga City Council drove the delivery of what is now State Highway 29 Takatimi Drive, and back in the day was called Route K, to bring that forward and deliver that early, and we subsequently purchased that. So both of those were examples of community support driving growth and driving progression, and that is what has led to Tauranga having a higher number of toll roads, but also infrastructure that has enabled growth and productivity and prosperity here earlier than might otherwise have happened. Furthermore, Tauranga is, we're really lucky in the Western Bay that we're going to see significant investment through the RONZ program. And we're going to see in particular the Takatimu North Link, stage 1, which is progressing fantastically in construction at the moment, and Tauriko West. And bringing forward that level of investment in the region does mean that we need to look at the funding and financing opportunities like tolling around that. But again, it's a story of productivity and growth here.
Jessica, just pause for 1 minute.
Absolutely.
Honourable Ken Shirley. Oh, were you just being friendly, were you? Waving. Oh, right.
He's just agreeing with everything I have to say, Chair.
Sorry, Jessica. Sorry.
No, not at all. I don't have too much, and then I have questions. Looking at the network view, and what I wanted to reiterate, because I know this is something that gets a lot of attention, is we are really aware that once you have, Takatimu Drive, Takatimu North Link, Tauriko, and Tauranga Eastern Link, they are a very connected, particularly the three on the western side, a really connected network, and that tolling assessments need to be done taking into account of the overall journeys and the interconnected network and how movement happens. And you've already seen an early example of that with the with what we're proposing for Takatimu North Link, where if you drive on Takatimu Drive and Takatimu North Link, you'll only pay the one toll. And obviously, as the kind of network gets more complex and more toll roads, and even one day potentially time of use is brought into Tauranga, if that's the direction this region decides to go, then we'll need to continue looking at making sure that the customer experience and the equity is managed really carefully there. And that is something we are working really actively on, and we are very aware of. So happy to take questions around that or any other aspect to do with tolling.
Angela, feel free to join in. Is Worship Mayor Luca?
I used to live in Sydney on the outskirts and used to drive down the M5. To get to work, I'd have to go through a toll, $3.70. So $3.70 to go through, $3.70 to come back every day. But we were exempt. Is there any provision for people who have to continuously go through a toll road to get to work? Because otherwise they're going to be heavily penalised.
No, there isn't. And the only exemptions will be for emergency vehicles. So that's your ambulance, police. So, all users have the option of an alternative free route. So that is one of the legislative requirements, is there has to be a reasonable alternative. That is your alternative than using the toll road. But all users, this is a user-pay system, all users will be tolled, and irrespective of whether it's your regular commute or otherwise. And that is in order to fund the provision of that infrastructure.
Honourable Ken Shirley.
Thank you, Chairman. I totally support and agree with everything Jessica's said, but we're missing the point here. And I'm very disappointed in the Minister's reply to the letter that we sent, because I don't think we're debating the virtues of toll roading. To me, all around the world, it's not, nothing's free. It's a question of how you pay, when you pay, and who pays. And this is direct user pay, and we have the technology to do it very efficiently. And the issue that we had was of concern was a political issue. And that was that our Western Bay of Plenty region has got, is it 5 of the 6 or 4 of the 5 or whatever toll roads in the country. And the one that triggered us was the Palmerston to North Woodville new link, where that was proposed to be tolled. NZTA had it on their program to be tolled. It was a new road opened after this policy was announced, but the government buckled to political pressure, massive campaigns, petitions, community outrage. And whereas we have benignly, with some people reluctantly accepted the toll, so the message that government sent there was all the community has to do is create enough outrage and they'll change their mind and back down. And that was our concern, that how robust is your policy in terms of the virtues which we agree with of toll roading. So the Minister hasn't answered our question. I suspect NZTA drafted his reply, but what triggered our request was something quite different. It was answering that basic question. How robust is your policy? Are you going to buckle every time you come under political pressure from outraged communities? Because you'll get that every time, now that you know that it works.
I don't think they can comment to that.
No, but
that's a good point.
And I'm sure, I'll hypothesise here, but I bet it was a political directive to drop that toll in Palmerston North.
We're still talking tolling. Councillor Crowther.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me ask a question. Jess, can you comment on the issue that we have on Takatumu North Link tolls with the 2, which at peak time will be quite a significant price? The view of many people in this community, as you're probably aware, is that it's not just whether there's a toll or not. So accepting that that is the government's policy and that's NZTA's analysis, that could be fine, but the amount of it seems to be the issue. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of flexibility in how those are set to cater for what seems to be a projected shift of people from the new RONZ highway onto the old roading network, which will add extra costs onto the system because there's probably a bigger marginal cost on the old highway to maintain and operate it. So can you comment on whether there's any likely flexibility, if to Councillor Shirley's point, if there was some political pressure brought to bear on that aspect?
Probably a couple of elements of answer to that. So there is a really robust policy and we're just updating that as well. So you'll see an updated version in the next few months, but that looks at how tolls are set. And that's based off analysis around trips, around economic productivity, around willingness to pay and equity factors, and looks at what the right balance is and that's how those are set through quite a detailed economic and modelling piece of work. Once the decision has been made by the Minister, those tolls are relatively solidly set. And obviously at this point, we are going into things like getting signage done, getting the road set up. So there is an enormous amount of ability to then go in and keep changing those beyond kind of annual CPI adjustments, which will happen every kind of 3 years by default with check-ins. So they are relatively fixed at this point. It's not impossible to change them. It's something that sits in the Minister, but they are set by order in council, and it's quite a kind of big process to go changing those, so it's not done on a frequent basis.
Greg.
Jessica, would freight be exempt on this tolling, or is that frequency of the movements of freight necessary for the tolling?
Yeah, so freight is not exempt. Freight actually have a higher, so we have a light vehicles and a heavy vehicles rate for tolls on each of our toll roads, and that partly recognises the greater impact on the cost of maintenance and wear and tear from from heavy vehicles. So they'll have a specific toll. And again, for Takitimu, there's a peak and an off peak. For others, that tends to be fixed at this time.
Ed Drysdale.
I have two questions. Probably firstly to Greg, I'd just be interested in understanding whether generally, the freight accept tolls or not, around that efficiency of a route and having good roads. And secondly, to Jess, I guess the concern from Tauranga City Council, and I'm sure it'll be shared by Mayor Denyer, is how much we're actually going to shift off State Highway 2, which will become a local road. And any comments around, because that was one of the missing pieces for us was that modelling, I guess, as to around the numbers and the cost of that toll, and how that would look.
Greg.
Yeah, Mahi, the freight industry doesn't mind. Tolls are, but it's a cost that we pass on anyway. So we just pass it on to the consumer.
Okay, no, that's just interested in hearing your view.
Worship Mayor Denyer.
Oh, Jess.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think, Chair, there was
Yeah, so Mahi's comment was similar to mine in that I'd like to ask, can the toll be varied if it's found that it's not taking sufficient cars off the existing state highway network, and one that has the potential that it doesn't actually reduce congestion too much, but also council, I guess, is nervous that we'll have to maintain a major state highway that takes over 20,000 vehicles a day and lots of heavies, and then suddenly that becomes really quite a significant cost to council to maintain. So is there, just to repeat, is there a ability to vary that toll in a responsive way if the modelling isn't borne out that enough cars are going on the toll road?
and I think I can probably answer both questions at once, so that probably worked for the best. Look, a couple of things. So when we do the assessment, there is a detailed look at what we call the diversion rate. So how many cars are going to use what is the existing state highway, which, as Mayor Drysdale said, will become a local road, and how many cars will use the new state highway. But obviously modelling is an art, not a science in my mind. So, we will need to then monitor that in real life and look at what the impact is. Ultimately, there is also a role for councils through the revocation and through their ownership of it to look at what sort of usage they're incentivising and how they want to set the road up. Things like, are we supporting public transport? Are we supporting walking and cycling? Are we putting in things that may make it more attractive for short trips rather than longer trips, which incentivise people onto the new express style roads where people will be able to get, from A to B a lot faster. But yes, we will need to, with all these roads, we do have a lot of reporting and a lot of monitoring that goes through. And I think if that shows that the balance is completely wrong, then that is something we would be having a proactive conversation with the board and the minister to say that there is a need to revisit their assumptions. But I also think internationally we've seen that it is very rare for that to be the reality. People want to get where they want to go fast, and it is very unusual to see people avoid this. But yeah, it's not a set and forget. It is definitely kind of an active conversation. We will be looking at, have we got the balance right, and have we got the community usage and needs? Are we meeting the right needs? And working with those councils on that as well to support them through that.
Ben Shirley, then Greg.
Thanks, Chair. I totally agree with Jessica's comment. My previous position with the Road Transport Forum, we did a lot of work with toll roads nationally, but also looking at the international situation, and Greg's very familiar with this, but there's always a lot of rhetoric about a new toll road, but the overwhelming experience is once it's there, people use it and the toll becomes insignificant. The Eastern Bypass would be a classic. In the freight sector, we had trucking company after trucking company, we'll never use it, we're not going to pay that toll, we're going to take the old Te Puke Road to the port. Not one of them did that. Right up to the day it was open, they said they would, but not one of them did that. And that's the pattern everywhere. It's it's just the convenience, it's connectivity, that's time is money.
Greg?
Yeah, to back up on Ken, it's time and distance, it's productivity and efficiency. And one of the other key things for using a toll road is the less chance of having an accident, better fuel economy, less wear and tear and maintenance. And that's a plus. And, going through all the back roads, and if there's an issue, it becomes a major issue. So that's one of the key reasons.
If I can add, I think one other observation is whilst I agree with Greg that the cost of the toll is ultimately paid for the user, the cost is paid by the community somehow, whether it's through tax revenue or it's through Fed and RUC or something. It's somehow the public are paying for that. So, this is about directly saying that the users of the road should pay directly for a portion of the cost, and this is far from meets the full cost of the road, but directly pay for a portion of the cost of the road. So there's one lever to pay for a significant investment that we are looking to make into the Western Bay, into New Zealand for more broadly.
It's okay. Angela, any final comments around tolling before we move on to the big issue of the day?
Nothing for me. I thought Jess did an amazing job.
Okay, the big ticket item, the Pikitahi Bridge.
Thank you, Jess and Angela. So we've already introduced Sandra. I'll introduce this topic. So there has been a lot of discussion around Pikitahi Bridge lately. It's just been through what Sandra will describe it as its regular little maintenance do-over in the school holidays, but there's been a lot of media interest, MP interest, etc., recently in the state of the bridge in general. You all know it and you can see it up there. It's a three-part discussion today and it'll be fairly brief. We've got the short term and the medium term, which Sandra will speak to, and then the long term, which is, a replacement bridge, and we've talked about the current fiscal environment. There is no funding for a replacement bridge and it doesn't sit as high in the national list of bridge replacements as other bridges that are reaching the end of their life a lot quicker. So I'll hand to Sandra to take us through these slides and give a bit more context to what we are doing at the moment.
Thank you, Andrew. We thought it was good to bring to the table a bit of information as I look after a team that have to nurse this bridge in terms of its surface decking. So there's a bit of statistics up there in terms of its length and its age. This deck was rebuilt back in 2017. It was stripped right back to its bare steel structure and rebuilt. It was a 16-week period to do that. I think there was a flood in the middle of it as well. They lost a bit of productivity time getting it done. So these photos are mine. So when we had the last closure, I went out to site because I wanted to see for myself what was going on. The middle photo there shows you what the bridge deck looks like. It's built on quite strong transverse beams. And what we're seeing in terms of maintenance is surface planking. So a bit akin to a chip seal on a road falling apart and potholing. We're seeing that with the surface planks potholing. The seal that's on it was put on for friction for motorcyclists. So we're left with a bit of a challenge with a seal on top of a timber structure that doesn't stick. So, and we're trying to screw down planks which keep popping out. So the team have a bit of a challenge in the space. It's servicing, as you can see, the volume of vehicles, and Mayor Luca has pointed out what Whakatane Bridge takes, which is far more in terms of this. It's carrying 19.4% heavies. Yes. HPMV go through this route. HPMV can't go through your network, so we've got HOPE. The heavy high production motor vehicles don't go through the Mahope route, so they take this route. It is taking all the freight from Gisborne area, so it is quite strategically important for Tairāwhiti in Gisborne, and I understand fuel supply is going this way back through to Gisborne with the cyclone recovery work south, so it probably has seen a bit more use in that space. There's a bit of a picture there for you to digest in terms of what it currently looks like. So in terms of how it was constructed. So it was really interesting going out on site with the guys. It is a So the surface planks crack, then they break and they pothole. And some of the pictures you're seeing online, some of the pictures people are taking, I've got some of those photos up there. So they literally are taking out the planks. This first one broke. It's a challenging exercise because it's screwed down. So it's physical labour to get this up. It's quite painfully slow. They take out, the planks are 50 mils wide, and the strategy is to take out two and replace with 100 mil wide plank. The ends of the bridges were the first to start seeing some wear and tear, and they've replaced those. They seem to be holding quite well. And our sealing crew from the Higgins contract is trialling some different types of seals as well to see what we can make stick. The last one that went on was a sort of a geo-grid type seal, which seems to be working. What we didn't have a closure over the Christmas break, and I think we're seeing a bit of an exponential breakage because we didn't do some maintenance in that period. When we walked the bridge, the guys were targeting all the potholes, all the stuff that had broken, but there's a fair few cracked planks that still need to be attended to, so we'll be monitoring those. It's a very difficult operation to do, and it requires a full closure, power tools, good weather, and good comms with our freight community and our local community in Taneatua in terms of school travel. Moving forward, we're looking at a deck replacement. We've started the design work to look at how we can do this. There's been plywood panels have been applied a few years back, but they were in the early stages in 2017, so it wasn't sort of tested. The structure's advice is that this is potentially a good option for this deck, which means stripping the whole thing back under a full closure. Not sure a time frame. So if we take the previous one was 16 weeks, it's a bit of a significant activity. And replacing, I've put a bit of a tentative design idea down there. At this stage, it hasn't been validated through the process. The budget, the 11%, so currently we have 800,000 in our budget, and that is 11% of the estimated cost to replace the deck, which is rough water costs around 6 to 7 million. Just for the deck, yes. We're looking at prioritisation, the CNLTP, but in the structure space, it's very tight. So that is a challenge for us at this time.
So just for the deck, which is 11%, so that makes an expensive exercise. Yeah, got it.
Drysdale.
My favourite, but is there a concrete solution here? Just put a slab of concrete over the top, and it will no wood will come through it.
The advice I've been given is it's the weight. So concrete is heavy, and with the heavy freight, we've got to be careful about the balance. So I understand from our technical experts, concrete is not an option, but you're right, that would have been interesting. Hence the timber ply option, which is potentially an issue. So. This is the last slide, but just to point out, there's been a bit of concern from the community, from the road users, that we haven't addressed the protruding screws. So what happens is the screws can jimmy out, the heads can come off, and they can create a bit of a protrusion. So unsafe, they can create problems. So we're organising a bit of an urgent day closure. We're working with Greg's team to make sure we're all over the approval of that, to walk the bridge and deal with anything that potentially has been missed. You'll see some screws slightly protruding with the screw heads still on them. They should still be okay in terms of ability for travelling public to use, but we will be looking at that probably in the next couple of weeks.
So I just add to finish up, I guess the advocacy of this group is important as well in this particular asset. And given what we've seen lately and given some of the noise that we've heard, Sandra is looking at how can we look at helping to get some discussion going internally around how we reprioritise a few things around this, but there's absolutely no promises here given the cost involved. So.
I am working closely with the team to look at how can we accelerate some of the work we're doing, the productivity of the replacement of planks and things like that. Assumptions around when it's closed in terms of the time of year. So we're working on that at the moment.
Worship Mayor Luca.
That 11% number, that means that for a new bridge, you're talking 80 to $100 million, right?
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you.
Well, 11% of something, so it means you must start with something.
11% relates to the budget we currently hold versus what we need for the deck. The whole bridge replacement cost is another story in terms of
But
dollars.
there's not even any preliminary engineering or no estimates, nothing.
Sandra and Andrew, what sort of advice can you give us in terms of, at the moment, we've been communicating with your office, which has been brilliant. We're wearing concerns, not only Eastern Bay politicians, but also regional council politicians. We haven't written to the minister.
I mean, that's something available to you. I wouldn't be able to give you that advice to say do that. That's something you guys can discuss based on what we've delivered today, I think.
Mayor Luca, it's your neck of the woods. What do you want to do?
I'm actually in the process of writing to the minister and sending him a proposal already, which is my prerogative to do, right? He can just trash it and put it in bin 13 or whatever. 10. The 50 maxes that you're so fond of, can they not also go through the Valley Road? Is there any reason why they can't do the other route, or is it too torturous, or? Seven tons per axle, roughly, yeah.
That's why you've got when the 50 max was introduced, the requirement was to have the 9th axle. We used to have 8 axle maximum, and to get to 50 tons over what was the standard 44 tons, had to introduce another axle, and that was all about loadings and pavement wear.
I guess I wasn't really worried too much about so much about the weight as about the size of manoeuvring it through town and crossing the landing road. The landing road bridge has got no problem with a 50 max, does it?
Depends on the configuration, whether it's yeah.
I don't know.
Greg?
No, well, I guess using, we're making fuel deliveries in town with 50 max units.
Yeah.
So,
and there are logging trucks going across, which must be, I don't know what a 50 max looks like, but I suppose
well, some of them might be even higher. Under high productivity. But I guess for that particular bridge we're talking about here, it becomes quite strategic for that area for freight out of and goods to market to the port from that particular area. If that was down for a long time, those trucks have to go somewhere via town to make that same delivery.
I'm not arguing against the need that this bridge needs to be fixed first. A new surface. It's not surface, but a whole new, we call it the top bit. I'm talking about the replacement, which is a huge investment, which doesn't look like, I don't know, anyway,
So-
it needs to be done.
Okay, so speeding things up, Whakatane District Council's in the process of writing a letter to the minister expressing its concerns about the state of the Whakatane Bridge in the Eastern Bay. So I'm happy, I know you two will abstain, but are you happy for us to write a letter in support of you, or you let us?
I was just going to note one thing that might add to this concept, which is, as Sandra whispered to me just now, it is a structurally sound bridge.
Yeah. Well, that was on the slide that I put up there. I mean, there is nothing wrong with the substructure. Now, people say, why don't you just strap on another 2 lanes? Yeah, I'm not a bridge engineer, but it doesn't seem viable, but you'd better give me some feedback on that so I can tell people.
If you look at that diagram,
Yeah, it's pretty skinny.
it's pretty skinny.
Yeah.
So the reason there are timber curb railings is literally to keep the traffic in the centre.
Yeah.
You don't want anything loading the edges. So if you were to.
Kind of what I thought, but thank you for
Railway line.
confirming it. Yeah, I know.
So I'll propose at this point that we write a letter in support of Whakatane District Council in terms of the concerns that have been well and truly expressed. So I'll move, seconded by Mayor Moore. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Back to you, Andrew. Yep, Pikatahi Bridge.
Just on the Pikatahi Bridge, I don't know if there's any data from the last time that was fixed up. I did lose a brand new tyre prior to that on my way to Wellington with a group of school children. So yeah, quite a nervous drive all the way there with a bolt that was actually sticking right through and completely wrecked the tyre. So even when the heads are sticking up, they punch a nice beautiful hole through your tyre, and a very good tyre too. Just with that, was there any data collected on, I'm interested to know about traffic issues from that period where it was shut last time? And if not, there's no data for that. If it's going to be shut for a similar period, maybe that's a good opportunity to capture some data about how much time it's taken to go via Whakatane. This may actually put some weight onto Luca's other proposal, because you're certainly not going to rebuild that bridge at that length when you've got something that's much smaller in town, and I'm afraid you're going to have to drive a bit further.
That's a good suggestion, but we, as Sandra mentioned, don't have the funding to actually do the debt replacement at this point, but if we did.
Sandra, you wanted to say something?
When I walked to the bridge, I picked up a number of numerous things, including large bolts, things that could cause damage. So things are being dropped as traffic is moving over. It was quite interesting, but definitely the bolts.
We appreciate you'll want to get home, so we're going to have to speed this up.
Yep.
So Andrew, back to you. Another subject other than Pikatahi Bridge.
So I've got a suggestion, and obviously my report is taken as read, and I do have the usual fulsome slide pack, but I can take that as read, or do you want me to?
It is important.
Okay, so if we jump, have I got the pointer? I do. Well back, unfortunately. Looking for you to do this, Amanda, to go to slide number 3. Oh no, I've made it.
There's a delay.
I've got there, I think. Maintenance. So if we look at the national picture, we've delivered over 2,000 lane kilometres of road renewals this summer. We've still got selected activities continuing, like asphalt resurfacing, where we have greater flexibility around ground temperatures. Similar volume to recent years, but this NLTP includes a significant increase in road building or rebuilding, which will lead to an increased longer term and network quality. We've had a good season nationally with regard to maintenance because of the good weather, and we've worked pretty hard to minimise overall disruption, particularly around summer hotspots, and communicating pretty heavily around disruptive work such as Desert Road closure. So we're now switching the focus nationally to maintenance of the network over the colder, wetter months, looking to respond to potholes within 24 hours, continuing to do that in line with that GPS service level. And we're also using the winter period to roll out the risk-based traffic management approach across our NOC contracts, ensuring that we have the right traffic management approach to each and every situation. Just sing out if there is a question, because I'll try and go quite speedily here as well. I won't speak to the national ticketing solution, but work continues. A lot of focus around Canterbury, and we'll get to that, I believe, in coming quarters. Road Safety Week, obviously, next week. So thank you to those councils that are engaged in that around the table alongside ourselves and Becca and Brake. Setting of speed limits. I won't go into the detail around the rules because I think we've talked about it a lot and it's quite complex, but 1st of May was the deadline to supply a list of specified roads to NZTA from RCAs, and 1 July is the deadline for reversals to be implemented, and then another year for the VSLs to be installed outside school gates. So we've been, as you expect, dealing with a lot of queries and requests, so thanks for the patience involved for those that have had requests. And we know that the Minister has advised some RCAs that he is not considering further changes to the rule to waive any of the new requirements. Numerous councils have submitted their cost scope adjustment to their low cost, low risk program under the local road improvement activity class and have been advised of their outcome with regard to resetting speed signage. Other NLTF bids are still being reviewed and approvals are being done in batches at the moment. Safety cameras. So with our NLTP funding, we're looking to add about 27 new permanent safety cameras around the country. We are prioritising the average speed point-to-point safety cameras, as these are proven to be the most effective at reducing deaths and serious injuries. Roads with the average speed safety cameras obviously require 2 or more cameras, so there's a limited number of roads treated with this approach, given that we're only the funding for 27 across the country. And as you will have heard in the last couple of days, we'll be taking over the mobile safety cameras from July 2025. These will be housed in vehicles, SUVs and trailers. And you'll start seeing those around the network. We're working with the provider and our RCA partners to do the health and safety assessments at the roadside, and we are taking local knowledge into account when identifying the sites where these will be parked. There are 2 locations identified as part of the National Risk Assessment of State Highways in the Bay of Plenty that would benefit from safety cameras. So we expect that installing these cameras will reduce the risk of people being killed or seriously injured on these 2 stretches of roads. So State Highway 5 Tumanui, a 19k stretch of highway with a 100-kilometre speed limit, and the average speed is 47% of all vehicles and drivers are speeding, given the average speed is 100 kilometres per hour through that section. And the Matata Strait, it's a 12.5 kilometre stretch that will be having the cameras installed, and the average speed through that area currently is 99 kilometres per hour, so 45% of all drivers speeding through that section at the moment.
Just repeat your comments about Matata for his worship. I think he might have missed
So this
that.
is the
It's on
installation of the,
45%.
are you
I
aware of the
suppose.
safety cameras we're installing?
No,
You may be soon.
I'm riding
Um,
with him all the time
Let me
now.
know if you hear from them.
Okay. Keep going, Andrew.
So point-to-point cameras going in Matata to assess the average speed. So if everything goes to plan, we expect to begin construction mid-2025 and enforcement later this year. And there would be signs before enforcement on any new safety cameras around the network. Jump to Bay of Plenty specifically. There's some nice pictures. So a busy month in April. We hosted Minister of Transport on 3 site visits in one day. Many people like Mayor Drysdale and myself were on holiday at the time, and he visited Hamilton the week before. So this wider Waikato Bay of Plenty region has had a lot of good attention from our minister, and he's been really enjoying getting out and about in the region, interacting with the local MPs, but also I think quite taken with the growth that he's seeing, particularly around Tauranga and Hamilton when he's at these sites. And just wanted to make a note with these visits, the ministerial events are run by the minister's office, so led by them. They liaise with our office and our teams to facilitate these. So often we're asked if elected members or officials can be invited, but it's up to the minister's office's discretion as to who actually attends these. Takatimu Northlink Stage 1 progress. Probably the only update here would be we're looking further at the connection between Stage 1 and 2 and the design and sequencing of this, given the target start date of Stage 2 end of 2027, and how that interacts with the completion of Stage 1 in 2028. So we're looking at some design work at the moment around the tie-in point for those 2 stages, which could produce $6 million in cost savings. We just held as well a project open day, which had about 400 people attend at the Bethlehem Town Hall at late March to celebrate that midpoint. Stage 2, property acquisition currently underway. We're securing all the properties within the designation boundaries at the moment. And I think we've covered the rest of that. Oriko West. update on that one today. I don't think we just had a good walk through the enabling works this morning with Mayor Drysdale and Councillor Crowther in attendance with the TCC councillors. Wainui Road at Portiki. Construction is underway at the Matakerapu roundabout. So you hopefully drove through that today at some point, Mayor Moore. New roundabout is expected to be ready in 12 months' time. This is the good news slide that has been included. So the Minister's Office today announced funding is approved for the team to deliver 2 new teardrop roundabouts and complete the State Highway to Wainui to Portiki Safety Improvements Project. So this is at the Ohiwa Beach Road. There'll be a roundabout and the Waitahi Valley Back Road. So the next steps for this is detailed design, land acquisition being finalised, resource consent applications and procuring a contractor for the works, with construction expected to begin mid to late 2026 and take 12 months to complete. So as the work finishes on the Matakerapu roundabout, hopefully we can move to constructing these pieces at around $10 million. So well done to the committee for that.
That's just, we don't want to get into the territory.
That's not embargoed. No,
So
but I
that's
said that
quite-
last time, right?
We're quite safe, are we? And, okay,
You're safe, you're safe.
Not like Christmas.
yeah,
Okay,
no,
right.
We're safe.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
Andrew, it's more out of interest, really, those notification signs for speed cameras. Has it actually, is the revenue still the same, or have those signs actually done their job?
I haven't heard about the revenue, actually. I mean,
Interesting.
the revenue doesn't come to us, it goes to the government consolidated fund. So
Must be some data on it.
yeah, it should be publicly accessible somehow.
Pause a minute, Honourable Ken Shield.
So two questions, Andrew. The Takatimu North, good news with the stage 1, the good construction season. But now that stage 2's on the RONS program, where are we at in terms of the status of the designations? I know there's a lot of landowners very interested to know just where we're going. What's the timeline? Are you able to sort of give us some indication in terms of that triggering point of the designations?
But there's 70 properties being acquired at the moment by the property team. I'll just move back to the notes on that one. Designation's already set. I mean, I'm happy to bring back any further information, but it's the property acquisition
A lot of
phase
people
at the
sort of asking
moment.
the question, where are we going with it? So just progressing in terms of.
We can put a bit more detail on that at the next RTC.
There's a lot of community interest in stage 2. Yeah. And the other question I had is just acknowledging the significant safety improvements from Waihi to Omokaroa, but we do have the festering sore of the right-hand turns, particularly at Wrights Road. I think the community is very relieved when the initially intended program wasn't, but still a lot of angst, as you're probably aware, and there's a petition to Parliament 2 or 3 weeks back
yes,
on asking for a review of the Wrights Road right-hand turn.
So I was at Select Committee yesterday, Transport Infrastructure Select Committee regarding that petition.
Have they deliberated yet?
I don't believe they've deliberated. We had the opportunity to obviously speak to our component of that. The petitioner had their opportunity as well, and we'll just see what happens next.
Thank you.
I think we're coming close to the final piece. Can't forget Rotorua. So final phase 1 of State Highway 30 Eastern Corridor Stage 2 project is in construction, which is signalising the State Highway 30 Tanai Road, Whananui Road intersection, which will obviously support the growth and development in Eastern Rotorua, including the planned housing in that space. Project team are working closely with Rotorua Lakes Council to ensure the construction and traffic impacts on the local and regional roads are minimised. though the completion dates moved out a little due to the weather issues that we've had over April. So plan is that the intersection's operational by mid-2025.
Road seems to have taken forever. Councillor Crane and Colin O'Brien, you'll agree, it's taken forever.
Nodding there.
And pray God we get a roundabout at the Rotary Airport T-Bar, because I'm telling you now, someone's going to get killed there sooner rather than later.
I imagine that's in phases 2 and 3 of stage 2, which are currently unfunded.
It's my Pikitahi Bridge, I share with you. Okay, right.
That's good to know. The other one for Rotorua is Hauraki Stream culvert, so north of the intersection State Highway 36 and Hamarana Road, being replaced by a stronger bridge to make that network more safer and resilient moving forward. Maintenance and ops, Sandra would love for me to highlight some of those stats that we see there. So this is success, really. 110% delivery, 137 lane kilometres of road rebuilding across the Bay of Plenty. And later on, mid-2025, a season debrief will be held. We have planning season discussions coming up as well for the next maintenance season, and looking to have discussions over that period with partner councils and stakeholders over how our program interacts with your own programs by the middle of the year. So we're all ready to go. We delivered beyond what we'd promised, clearly, with that 110% stat, and significant to recognise Bay of Plenty West structural asphalt program. So we normally achieve 77,000 metres squared of asphalt, and this construction season we did 220,000 metres squared. So shout out to Sandra, given she's here, and her wider team, as well as the NOC partners, and the fact that we procured all that ourselves as well, using the market to deliver that. And what would it be without a pothole slide? And the comment I would make here would be 150 potholes filled in a 24-hour period of April 30th, May 1st. So we're well and truly into the pothole season, as you will have seen with your beautiful Bay of Plenty weather over the last few weeks. That's all, given we've got tolling and Pikitahi to follow. So happy to take any further questions away.
Going, I think, Andrew, just... Oh, that's it. You've done it. So we've done everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to move receipt of your report?
I'm happy to move that. It is.
I'll second it. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And Andrew, come forward. Everyone's starting to wilt, Andrew. So can I suggest? Yes. Can I suggest? I think if you could focus on the red flags, perhaps. Yeah, rather than go through 20 different colours. I think that's the ones that'll be of concern to members. The red flags.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, just for information report on the progress of implementing the 2024 RLTP. Just noting this is the first progress report of the triennium. So, it's early days on progressing a lot of these activities. Not a lot of time for things to have gone completely wrong or fallen behind yet. So in saying that, in summarising the overall results, things are looking fairly well, progressing well. Most of the issues are in the unfunded sort of category. As we all know, a lot of activity is not funded. And and just noting that the report is slightly out of date. It was prepared for the last March meeting, which was rescheduled to today. So it's a couple of months out of date. That's pretty much it. I'll take the detail as read and take any questions or comments.
Comments, colleagues? Are starting to wilt. So, okay, I'll move that we receive the report and thank you. Note its contents. Mayor Luke is going to slow us down. Mayor Luke. Oh, you're seconding it. Okay, right. Seeing seconded his worship, Mayor Luca. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. We're on the home straight, folks. And in terms of verbal updates, you feel you've had a good day in court, Mayor Luca? You don't brief us on anything else? What's Matata. Mayor Drysdale, thanks for being with us. Anything you'd like late on a Friday to share with us that's happening in Tauranga? Nothing good. Mayor Tunui? Nothing. Thank you, Andrew, for your attendance. Mayor Moore, you'll be happy with some of the announcements this afternoon. Very, presume you're going to get a press release out this afternoon.
Yeah.
It's election year, you know, go for it.
And certainly nice working with Andrew. I think it's 6 months gone, so yeah, nice working with Andrew since you joined.
Sandra, thank you too for coming some distance. My good friend on my right's off to England first thing in the morning, so we wish him a safe and, well, via Singapore. Okay, I think we've also got, beg your pardon, New Zealand. Scott, are you still with us? Scott from the police?
I am still here. I'm having some issues with my video though. Can you hear me all right?
We can't see you, but
yeah, apologies for that. It's got the hazard sign on it. Conscious of time.
Security, so
Yeah. I won't hold you up any longer, but just a quick sort of message from the police around where we're at with the Bay of Plenty in regards to DSI, our death and serious injury crashes. We've for the period 1 July until when I got the data on Monday the 7th of May, we've had 211 serious and fatal crashes across the Bay of Plenty district. Breaking those down, that was 181 serious crashes that resulted in injury and 30 fatal crashes. Breaking it down to your areas for you, Eastern Bay of Plenty, there were 42 crashes with 55 people injured. Rotorua, 40 crashes, 53 people injured. Taupō, 42 crashes with 64 people injured. Western Bay of Plenty, 57 crashes with 63 people injured. In regards to the fatal crashes, tragic these all are, there were 30 fatal crashes in total with 34 people tragically losing their lives. The areas for you, Eastern Bay of Plenty, 6 crashes with 6 loss of life. Rotorua, 7 crashes with 10 people losing their lives. Taupō, 11 crashes with 12 people losing their life. And the Western Bay, 6 crashes with 6 loss of life there. Police are focusing at the moment on those driver behaviours that contribute to those DSI crashes. And just for some context for you, for that period for the Bay of Plenty, police have issued over 3,000 infringements for seatbelts, 2,500 infringements for drivers using their phones while they're driving, over 39,000 infringements for speed offences, and over 307,000 drivers have been tested for breath alcohol. And as a result of those breath tested, 794 drivers received infringement notices for impaired driving, and 1,742 drivers have been prosecuted through the courts for offences relating to impaired driving. So that's sort of just a very quick snapshot, just conscious of the time, around where we're at in the Bay of Plenty around our DSI crashes and our delivery on those areas that we believe are contributing to those DSI crashes. And any questions, happy to answer, but otherwise I don't need to hold you up any longer, I don't think.
Any questions, Scott? No, thank you. There's no questions, Scott. Thank you so much for being with us, and it's greatly appreciated that you were part of the Zoom this afternoon. And finally, Lynn and Lisa at New Zealand Rail. Lisa, anything at all you want to update us on pertaining to New Zealand Rail activities in the Bay of Plenty?
No, look, I think Lynn and I will provide a presentation for the next meeting. I guess the focus for us in improvement space is really around that business case of the Golden Triangle electrification. It's proceeding really well. We're through the optioneering process and starting to form recommendations around mode, etc. So that's really, I think, towards the end of this year, we'll be looking at that business case being completed and funding options being considered. So we can come back next meeting with more information. If there's anything in particular, any questions, then we're happy to answer them.
Questions on New Zealand Rail? They're being done. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for your attendance. Okay, that's the end of the meeting, everyone. We'll just pause 1 second while we turn off the live stream. Thanks to everyone on the